Before we start, I just dropped some Jujutsu Kaisen items with Dabra, the king of Sumerian's horns. This is from JJK Modulo, and there's multiple options to customize with. There's even more UGC items I'm cooking up in the background, but if you want some anime stuff, check the link out down below. Deepwoken's Verse 3 was something I honestly never expected. I thought my favorite game, Deepwoken, was doomed entirely post-Layer 2, since everyone just left. The players went away, and so did the devs, but luckily, momentum was all we needed to get that fire burning once again. With the release of Verse 3, things were happening. The Authority Origin dropped out of nowhere, Holotide came out just as expected, and recently, the Valve Iron game mode was pushed out into Deepwoken. But despite all of that content, Deepwoken still hit a wall. Players were split, and the game mode was just polarizing. Was this something made for everyone to play? Was it too difficult, or just boring? Some of the community loved the Valve Iron, while others ignored it entirely, but one thing that stayed the same was the goal of the developers. Regardless of its outcome, the devs communicated with us, the community, and have plans to keep on working, and to be honest, with their new promise to the game, I think Deepwoken has a chance to heal. What's up guys, it's Punchy, and today we'll briefly be covering the upcoming updates revolving around healing Deepwoken from the ground up. I was surprised to hear this from the development team that's always been about content, but I'm excited and a bit relieved to have some well-needed content reworks. Raguzer, one of the main developers for Deepwoken, announced Operation Deep Healing in the main Deepwoken Discord. So this wasn't even planned on the Verse 3 timeline, but I'm glad there are plans for content fixes. We even have a special new icon for Operation Deep Healing, which is what they're calling it, and it should be similar to the Rainbow Six and Payday healing patches. Anyway, there's planned quality of life, additions to slept on content, and reworks coming with these patches, and I'm really excited to see how they turn out. To start with scheduling, this operation should begin and only last within January, and it's going to be split into 2 patches for the month. Each patch should take about 2 weeks to come out, with a lot of work being done behind the scenes, but it should be all dedicated to polishing up content that honestly deserved better. Now, without further ado, let's discuss each main part separately. Kicking off our segments with a really beneficial idea, they once again want to bridge the gap between PvP and PvE. This was already partially done in the past with the removal of damage versus monster gear replaced with a new monster manual buffs, but this is a much greater change. Many talents and mantras in modern Deepwoken only have a place in just PvP or just PvE, so a few of them overlap and can be used in both game modes, but the Deep team has plans to bridge this gap further. Within these patches, they want to give reworks and buffs to talents that only have exclusive viability in a single game mode, so they can be used in everything. Fighting players will always be an integral part of Deepwoken's gameplay loop, but Monster Hunter players should also have a fair chance to participate in that combat too. Specifically, with PvE builds getting jumped by gankers, this update should probably smooth out those gaps and give them a fighting chance to actually defend themselves. World events. These global scale events for Deepwoken were always kinda chopped and realistically lost their charm the second after they released, and the devs acknowledged that. Game modes like the Carnival of Hearts don't even work correctly half the time, and nobody even plays them, while mobs like the Parasol or World Serpent continue to be annoying to fight against with zero rewards. The loot is never really worth it unless you have a very specific build, but world events are honestly just a waste of time to play. Luckily, Raguzer announces that he wants players to group up together with temporary squads, very similar to a concept found in the Authority Origin that let them work together with a larger goal in mind. At least, it might be more interesting to party up and take down these events, but who knows? Roblox just killed all forms of communication since we can't even send messages to our friends, but overall, world events will receive some focus on being fixed and should be a bit more rewarding to take on. Next up, with a larger scale change, the Deepwoken developers want to tackle defense in all forms of content. Defending against attacks in Deep has always been the same: block, parry, dodge, and of course, stay calm. It's a staple for the game and almost a mantra for the community, but in the Valve Iron game mode, many different bosses and monsters gained attacks that were slidable, duckable, or jumpable, and added a ton of depth into combat. Before this, undodgeable attacks or unblockable ones were thrust into the spotlight, giving players a more dynamic experience that forces them to adapt. Personally, I'm a huge fan of the different defensive actions players have to take to stay alive, but they were poorly explained in-game. One of the major reasons why a ton of players dropped the Vow of Iron was because they had no idea what was defendable on the Shogun boss, but maybe they'll add some clarity or explanation of each in a tutorial or tip section. Another really interesting part about this statement is the optimal ways to defend. So in current Deepwoken, there are attacks that can be defended with multiple different options, but in the future, there will always be a best way to defend. Sure, you could block an attack, but parrying is how you can punish the ability best and get some sort of retaliation. I'm a huge fan of rewarding skill expression in a game with so many mobility and combat options, and it should overall improve monster hunting and boss fights. As for PvP, maybe some attacks are going to be more forgiving or punishing with the introduction of these optimal defense options, but it's really hard to predict what's going to happen. Leave your own thoughts down below because I really want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Moving forward, there's going to be a lot of focus on diversifying weapons, so I really don't want to be that guy, but remember, there's like 8 legendary greatswords in the game, and it feels really sad that other weapons don't get that love. So anyway, here's what the devs have to say. Deepwoken has a lot of different weapons that offer and reward new playstyles, but mechanically, there isn't too much variety. According to Raguzer, part of the month will be dedicated to separating these weapon classes and making them feel a bit more unique. Maybe Great Hammers will play completely differently compared to Great Axes, but that's one of the many examples that they have. They also say it's possible in the future for weapons to have unique uppercuts, slide attacks, jumping aerials, and maybe even new game mechanics, and honestly, I'm excited to see it. I think weapons in this game should generally be weaker when it comes to combat stats, but instead more fun and gimmicky to build around. Although this is definitely a game about precise combat, it's primarily based around building, and if each weapon and build plays differently, there's a lot here to experiment with. On top of all these projected changes to weapons, there are ideas in mind to add even more content to weapon types that kind of fell behind. Weapons like bows and twin blades were mentioned as receiving new options to play with, but honestly, I'm more interested in talents. It's a bit crazy that the sword weapon type doesn't even have talents to play with. Anyway, I'm really happy to see more options and reworked options being talked about coming to build making, and it's absolutely massive. This is obvious, and we all saw it coming. Now, to finish it up with a basic statement about bug fixes, outstanding bugs that have lasted a while in the game will finally be on the chopping block. It's great to announce a change like this, but bugs always seem to appear out of nowhere regardless of testing, and this plan will hopefully eliminate future problems. They claim that improving the foundation of the game will allow for smoother releases, but again, it's variable and just hard to accept. Overall, I'm glad that this is happening, but it's less exciting than some of the other major reworks. Now, with all that being said and done, with the announcement for Operation Deep Healing, I think a ton of problems could potentially be solved. The Deepwoken development team was pretty good about communicating what would happen, and their work here is constant, but before Layer 3 eventually comes out, Operation Deep Healing might fix some of the cracks. At the end of the day, what do you guys think? Share your feedback and leave comments down below, since the devs want to know what's up. Thanks once again to all the supporters who motivate me daily and directly help out the channel, because it means a lot. If you want to join as a member for my channel, go down below, but besides that, my personal Discord, Guild Discord, and my UGC group are linked down below, so check them out. Thanks once again, and make sure to like and subscribe. It's punchin' time.